In this lesson, we're going to talk about income potential, which seems to be the biggest question ever is how much money can I make being a handyman? So, before we get started, I want to make something clear. We have to define income. So, the way I'm defining income in this video is the amount of money that you're charging for your labor. So, not for the materials, but for your labor itself. But you do have to remember when you're running a business, the money you're charging for that labor is not all yours. You do have overhead, and you're going to need to subtract your overhead. But for the purpose of this video, what we're going to be talking about is how much money you, as a sole proprietor, owner, operator, self employed handyman, are going to be able to charge for your labor over the course of a day, a week, a month, a year. Now, the short answer to that is you could make as little as $0 if you fail miserably, or you could make, according to my chart, as much as 420,000. However, neither of those are very likely. So let's go into, first of all of the variables that are going to affect how much money you're going to be able to make as a handyman. And then once we do those variables, I'll bring up my chart and I'll actually show you a very good way to try to figure out ballpark where you might end up being. First of all, big cities pay more than small cities, so where you live and the size of the population there is going to make a difference. High income areas pay better than low income areas, so the income levels of the place that you're working in is also going to make a difference. Commercial work pays better than residential work. Business to business pays better than business to consumer. So if your handyman business is working mostly for other businesses, you'll be able to charge more than if you're working directly for the consumer of your handyman work. However, this may not apply if you're able to get yourself into some rich neighborhoods and work only for wealthy people. Obviously, skilled labor pays better than unskilled labor. And working at a high efficiency rate is ultimately going to make you money than working at a low efficiency rate because you're accomplishing the same amount of work in less time. Something else to keep in mind is the amount of money you're able to charge for the work you do is going to be highly dependent on how you run your business. The more professional and on top of things you appear and actually are, the more professional you are, the more you'll be able to charge for that level of professionalism. And now we're going to go over just some hypotheticals. We're going to go over just a few scenarios that you might be able to find yourself in. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up my chart now. So let me just pull this up. There we go. This is the chart. Now, I do want to show you right here at the bottom left that says $300 temporary, because when I switch back to this view, you're not going to see that. But beneath that, it says $300 temporary. So let's just say, generally speaking, let's say we're going to talk about the value of our time, and we're not going to do this in terms of charging hourly. We're not going to advertise ourselves as being available for an hourly rate. But at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month, and the end of the year, what we really want to know is how much of our life did we give away in exchange for the amount of money that we got. So, if you're on the very, very low end, let's say that you're charging $50 an hour and you're able to work for, say, 6 hours a day, that's going to put you at $300 a day. That is a very low amount of money to be charging as a handyman. I don't expect any of you to be charging 50 an hour. But if you just absolutely had to, because you're in a very teeny tiny, very poor town, and you're okay with not making lots of money, but you still want to be employed as a handyman, $50 an hour times 6 hours a day is going to put you at 300 per day. Now, let's say you get a little bit more experienced. Maybe you're in a better location where you can charge more. Let's say you're at $100 an hour working 6 hours a day. That's going to give you $600 a day. And this is pretty doable in an average city if you're moderately skilled and your business is fairly busy. And I know it seems like you could do more than this. However, when you start getting busy, you're going to find that a lot of time has to go into admin work. So you're not going to be able to work full days every day because you're going to need to get home and be doing invoicing, writing new estimates, etc. Now, let's say you're in an even bigger city and you have some really good skills and you have a lot of clients and you're really doing well. You might find yourself at $150 an hour. And we're also going to call this 6 hours a day again. And that's going to put you at 900 a day. Now, this is very doable in places like New York, LA, pick any of the largest cities in the United States. You can absolutely find yourself at 150 an hour. In fact, you can find yourself at far more than that in some of these locations. But let's just say you're in a larger city, you're very skilled, and you're able, with the time that you put in, to pull about $150 an hour for the hours out of the day that you're working. You're going to work 6 hours a day. That's going to give you $900 per day, pretty close to 1,000 a day. And for almost anybody, that's going to pretty much be the absolute maximum you can pull off routinely day after day after day. And finally, let's say that you are making $150 an hour and you just really want to maximize the potential of that. You could go ahead and work for 8 hours a day on the job. That would be about $1,200 a day, which is a very, very nice number. And finally, let's say, just for example, that you're a very skilled remodeler and that you have wealthy clients and that you can stay busy all year long with wealthy clients doing extremely highly skilled work. I would say that would put you easily at 150 a day, if not more, full 8 hours a day, because you don't need all that scheduling time because you're doing bigger remodels. So you can show up in the morning, work 8 hours, and go home. If you can make it to that point, then you could find yourself at $1,200 a day. However, like I said, don't expect that kind of money. The next thing we're going to do with this chart here actually is we're going to start going over all of these numbers and seeing what's realistic and what's not. And do keep in mind the general path through this industry for most of you is going to be starting out closer to the bottom and then working your way up towards the top as the years go by. The more years you do this, the better you're going to get, the more intuitive everything's going to feel, and the more efficient you're going to be at just running a very solid, very smooth running business that brings you lots of income. So don't be discouraged if you have to start out near the bottom. I started out near the bottom too. In fact, I started out at $25 an hour. I had no idea how this industry worked. I had been doing this type of work my entire life, fully skilled, fully capable, but just simply didn't know anything about how to run a business. And that's what this course is for. So let's dive into this chart here. All right, we're looking at the chart. And as you can see, what I have here is I have the daily rate right here. See the arrow pointing down? So daily rate of 1,200, 900, 600, or 300. Most of you should be able to start out pretty close to the beginning at 300 a day. Maybe not 300 a day right off the bat, but within a few months when you get the hang of things, 300 a day should really be the minimum that you're charging for your labor per day. And then up here on the top, as you can see, I have numbers for if you're working 7 days a week, 6 days a week, 5 days a week, 4 days a week, or 3 days a week. And do keep in mind when I say how many days you're working, I just mean how many days you're leaving the house with tools in your hand and working on the job. All of your other days and all of your other hours are also going to be consumed by this entire business. Now, also, if you look at this chart, you can see where I said 7 days, I wrote unsustainable. I promise you, you cannot work 7 days a week at the number of hours you're going to have to work both on the job and doing admin work and maintain any sort of work life balance. And I mean any sort of work life balance. You will not be able to work literally 7 days a week on the job forever. You still need to do admin work, and all of us have families and friends and loved ones that we have to take care of and be there for. So don't consider this 7 days to be unsustainable. So because of that, this entire column, as you can see, I've put in red. Same thing right here, $1,200 a day. If you're lucky, you're there. If you're lucky, you'll get there. But it's unlikely that you're going to be at that number on a daily basis, on a routine basis. So I've made this entire line also in red. 3 days a week of work. Some of you may be there in the beginning because it takes a while to build a clientele, but I put temporary here because this is not likely to be your permanent situation. So this entire column is red. And then finally, let's get this back over here. $300 a day right here. I wrote temporary. And that's also because it's not going to take you too long to start getting above that $300 a day mark. You'll just find yourself suddenly doing 400 on average, suddenly doing 500 on average, suddenly doing 600 on average. So this $300 a day is temporary. So I've made all of these red. Now let's look at what the chart actually is, how it works. 7 days a week times $1,200 a day. So if you put these two right here, you come into this block. This is going to give you 8,400 per week, which comes out to 420,000 a year. Same thing over here. You could take 4 days a week at 900 a day is going to put you at 3,600 per week. And then the number on the bottom is the annual revenue. And it's the annual revenue that we're going to talk about here. So, like I said, we're going to ignore the $1,200 a day. We're going to ignore the 300 a day. We're going to ignore working 3 days a week and ignore working 7 days a week. That leaves us with these blocks here, which the range for is 120,000 a year. And if you make this $120,000 a year for your labor throughout the course of the year, if you do manage to pull that off, that's probably not going to be six figures in your pocket after taxes and after overhead and everything. And I just mean business taxes. Everybody pays personal taxes, but after the business pays its business taxes and after your overhead is taken care of, this 120, maybe it's going to be 80, maybe it's going to be 90, maybe it's going to be 95. You'll be close to six figures. And then all the way up here, if you can pull $900 a day working 6 days a week, that's putting you at 270,000 a year. So you are definitely going to be making in your pocket maybe 200, probably something between 150 and 200, but a very definite six figures a year. So I'm not going to do all the math for every block, but as you can see, on the low end, I think you can expect once you get, let's say, a year into this and you know what you're doing and you built a clientele. On the low end, I think you can expect $120,000 annual revenue if you're working hard. And on the high end, I think you can expect about, let's just say, a quarter million, 250,000. This says 270, but call it a clean $250,000 a year of annual revenue just for your labor, not including all the materials money that flows through your account. But you should be able to charge 270,000 a year if you get to this point. And just to be clear, I'm not at this point. I don't want to work 6 days a week anymore because I don't have to. And I'm not at 900 a day. I'm at somewhere between six and 800, depending on the day, if I do work a full day. Now, in reality, you're actually going to have busy days and slow days. You're going to have profitable days and less profitable days. You're going to have days where everything goes wrong and days where everything goes right. So don't anticipate $300 a day, $600 a day, $900 a day, or $1,200 a day. Instead, anticipate that the amount of money that you're making daily for a full day of work over time is going to average out to some particular number, which you can then multiply by the number of days per week that you work. And the final takeaway from this, I think, should be that even on the low end, even if we look all the way down here at $300 a day, 3 days a week, that's still $45,000 per year. And if you're working that little for such a small amount of money, you're not going to have much overhead. You're not going to have much to pay in taxes. So this $45,000 a year is still probably $35,000 a year for you, maybe slightly less, but that's not bad for 3 days a week, making $300 a day. So I guess the takeaway should be this is if you are moderately skilled, if you know how to use tools, you know how to do basic work and you can figure stuff out, you can provide yourself with a living that is very comparable to even a moderately paying hourly job working for somebody else.